I'm standing in front of boat number 3, and right underneath we see this incredible mixing desk, Tascam M216, made somewhere in the 80s, and it has 16 inputs. You can use it as a microphone input or as a line input. It has a really interesting EQ. It has high, it has mid shelving, and it has low, and then it has two knobs. One is called fold back, which can be used as a, I guess, talk back to the musicians when you're recording, and it has an effect send. I'm using actually both these knobs to send out effects. We see the faders here, and we also see that you can route the signal to 1 and 2 or 3 and 4. And here we see those 4 subgroups. One is panned to the left and the other to the right, and the same for subgroup 3 and 4. And we see the corresponding meters that will tell us how loud the signal is coming out of this mixer. So now we get to the point, how am I using this mixer? Well, therefore, we're going to zoom in on one oscillator right here, which is the twisted waveform. It has 2 identical outputs. One has a purple one in it, and the other one has a blue cable in it. So why I'm using this mixer, I'll tell you. So the purple cable right here is going to channel number 8 over here. And then I have the ability to do some EQing, to play with the gain, and to send effects on top of this oscillator. But this oscillator is just a raw oscillating sound. So it hasn't had any gate information, no envelope, no filter information, nothing. It's the pure sound of the oscillator. And the sound of the oscillator is now coming back through the direct outs right here. So one more time, the oscillator leaves the output of the oscillator, goes to channel number 8 of my Tascam mixer. The direct out of this channel goes back to the Buchla system, and we see it right here. The same for all the other 4 cables that we see here, that all represent oscillator 5, 6, and oscillator 7, and oscillator 8. And the other 4 cables for channel 1 through 4 are the oscillators from boat number 1. It's a similar system. So in order to play this for you, I took a blue cable in the second output, which is exactly the same as the first one, and it goes here into a low pass gate, and then the cable goes out of the low pass gate, and it goes to my mixer here, that goes to more mixers, and then to Cubase out. So if I turn the low pass gate up here, what we just heard is the original sound of the oscillator, not being treated by anything. It just goes straight out of the output. It goes to a low pass gate, and it goes to its output over there, and then it's hooked up over here, where I just turned the level up to a certain amount. Now, if I want to hear the sound from this oscillator, but treated by this mixing console, I'm actually going to take, I'm going to stick this output cable that I had from the clean oscillating sound, and I'm now going to stick it into this output. And now we hear the same oscillator going through the M216, back into the Buchla system here, and with the low pass gate, when I open it, you can now hear the oscillator being treated by this mixing console. So in order to show you really the difference between it, I'm going to shut up talking. I'm going to open this low pass gate completely. I'm going to open the low pass gate here completely. And now we're going to compare the sounds. So this is the original sound of the oscillator. Now this is the treated sound of the oscillator. Back to the untreated sound of the oscillator. So that way I can give a really interesting color to an oscillator by turning it into overdrive or EQing it really drastically, like I just showed to you guys. And so you can just A/B really nicely compare how these two oscillators, how this one oscillator sounds, but treated in two different ways. So it's not always that I actually use this mixing console on the oscillator. Sometimes I actually go for the pure sound of the oscillator itself, but it's already pre-patched to go to all these channels on the mixing console right here, and then into low pass gates here, ready to go, whatever I want to do with it. And at the same time, I can still take the original signal from the oscillator if I want to use that. I really hope you like this short episode, like what I'm doing with this mixing console and the oscillators. So I just showed to you one of the oscillators of Buchla going through this mixing console back to the low pass gate and then to the outputs. But I also compared it with you with the original oscillator sound at the same time, so you could hear the difference. Now, this same trick applies to all the other oscillators that I have here in this Buchla system. Therefore, you see 12 faders up. 12 faders represent 12 different oscillators that are in this system that go into this mixing console. The direct out is going back to the position where it came from to then travel further through the Buchla system like it normally would if you just used an oscillator. But therefore, I can color each oscillator completely independently from each other before it then gets into the process of filtering, effects, envelopes, VCAs, low pass gates, and even panning, because these are wonderful quad mixers. But at any point in time, I can take the dry signal and use that instead of the heavy treated signal by this mixing desk. Obviously, you can do this really mellow, but you could also do this in a very extreme way where it really starts clipping, and you already heard, like when I did some drastic EQing, that it really starts like clipping the input of my tube preamp before it goes into Cubase. But sometimes that's a really interesting sound to have. Anyway, you know the drill. Leave the comments below and we'll get to it in another studio time. And thank you for watching this studio time. See you soon.